in 1984 they talk about the Ministry of Truth, and I think the Ministry of Truth now is what we call the legacy media, the mainstream media. And again, in London, Winston Smith is a member of the Outer Party working in the Ministry of Truth, where he rewrites historical records to conform to the state's ever-changing version of history.
Yep.
We're seeing that happening now on a daily basis. About colonialism, all that kind of stuff is happening. Winston revises past editions of the Times whilst the original documents are destroyed after being dropped into ducts known as memory holes, which lead to an immense furnace. That's happening now, isn't it, as well? We're not only finding our history being erased, being told how crap British people, English people, white people have been in the past, how dreadful we've been, how black people or brown people are actually far more significant in our history than they have been, and that's just, I know that's true. Basically, that is not the case. That the Europeans, the white Europeans, have dominated most of creativity and invention through the Industrial Revolution. But we're also now getting current events being completely tailored, doctored, altered, falsified, like the 100 riots, far right riots we've told about. It's a great example just 2 weeks ago where that was massively coordinated across the media, a complete falsehood, where the media basically worked together to give a story that was untrue, to incite the public and to bring out the communists basically to take to the streets. So that's come true as well about the mainstream media.
And also during post-COVID,
yes,
how many politicians and people say, I was never for the lockdowns, I was never for this, I never said that if you took the vaccine it was 100%. And then you go on X and you see a video of them 4 years ago going, these vaccines are amazing, you take one shot and you... So these people are lying all the time, and what's happened is all politicians realise if you say a lie often enough, it becomes the truth.
Yeah. But the difference is now, the very thing that is acting as a surveillance for the state is also where we can see the truth.
Yes.
Which is X basically at the moment.
X.
Because, I'm not sure... I'm not sure YouTube's that bad, because I watch things on YouTube that are fairly controversial and against the government line that haven't been taken off yet. But certainly X, if it wasn't for X, I don't think we'd be seeing a lot of these things. And these lies would gain traction then. But they've been doing it. So
lots of propaganda arms have to allow you to have a belief that they're not propaganda.
Yeah.
So propaganda arms have to feed you some truth and some things that go against the accepted narrative for you to think they're unbiased.
Yeah.
So we've got to be careful of some of the mainstream, especially online stuff, that we think, oh, they're talking about this. Well, they're giving you that, so you think they're an honest player, but they're not.
Yeah. This is something that's now starting to happen as well. We're going to talk about it later. The Thought Police employ undercover agents who pose as normal citizens and report any person with subversive tendencies. But this bit is more interesting to me. Children are encouraged to report suspicious persons to the government, and some denounce their parents. Citizens are controlled, and the smallest sign of rebellion, even something as small as a suspicious facial expression, can result in immediate arrest and imprisonment. Thus, citizens are compelled to obedience. We're seeing that, but the children bit is starting to happen now. So they're now starting to get the teachers to basically, what's the word? I would say brainwash the children to try and detect far right, what they regard. So what they're talking about now is, and we'll talk about it later, they're now trying to get children to report what they regard as far right activity. So if some other child, or if your parent, if you go home and your mum says, oh, it's uncontrolled immigration's out of control, they're encouraging children to report this now to their teachers.
This isn't new. This is exactly what happened in Soviet Russia. This is exactly what Mao did. Mao was fantastic at getting children to report their parents. From what I remember reading, lots and lots of parents were turned in by their children and executed. Because if you can brainwash children, then children are a lot easier to control and to do your bidding. So again, this is how Orwell foresaw this, because it was already happening.
Yeah, he'd seen this happening in a communist society, and he was saying this is potentially going to happen across the entire world, basically. But you can actually see the creep of this, can't you? Because the law's been passed in Scotland now, hasn't it? This hate crime law. That actually things you're saying. Have you heard about this? This is yeah.
I'm not sure. Has it been passed? I don't know.
It's actually been passed. So in Scotland now, if you're at home at your dinner table, or you're with a party with friends at home, and you say, "I don't agree with all this uncontrolled immigration. These bloody Muslims are out of control," or whatever, they can report you to the police.
Yeah.
And you can be arrested for that statement. Yeah. So that's happening in Scotland now. Yeah. We're now in England saying to the kids, this is how you recognise far right behaviour or whatever, you need to tell us about this because this needs to be reported to an organisation called Prevent, which you will know about. Again, we'll talk about later. So this is actually happening now, but can people not see this is happening?
Again, in this country, it's been happening for decades. Who were the foot soldiers for the eco-lunatics? Children.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, children come home from school 20 years ago going, Mum, turn that light off, because every time you turn that switch on, it kills a polar bear. So let's recycle, Mum, because we're killing the planet. All these ideologies, they use children first because, A, we love our children.
Yeah.
Children come across as innocents. They have no hidden agenda. So these far left organisations and regimes always use children. There's photos, loads of photos of Hitler, of Mao, always with beautiful little children sat on their knees, because you use children for that public image, propaganda, and to get your message into the wider community. These aren't new ideas.
But I suppose the difference there is they were indoctrinating kids at school to go home and say things to the parents. They're now saying to the kids, you need to tell us if you hear any. This is what Yvette Cooper is now talking about. They're now encouraging children to report, and it's only a small step to them kids reporting their parents, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
And now we know you can put a Facebook post on and end up in jail. But I'm not sure people. Are you guys actually seeing this? You know, are people actually seeing what's happening here?
They are. This is the calm before the storm. So people didn't expect this reaction from Starmer in the government. It's taken everyone aback a little. People are rightly scared. And people are mulling it over. But everyone can see it. And I don't know if I've said to this before, there's a great quote in Star Wars when Princess Leia is talking to General Aquino. It was Darth Vader's boss, basically. Darth Vader.
You were a big Star Wars.
I'm a big. The early ones, all the new stuff's crap.
Yeah.
And she says to.
Careful, you'll be arrested for that opinion soon.
Well, yeah. the women and feminists have ruined Star Wars. But she says about the Empire, the more you tighten your grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. And that's what's happening now. They're tightening their grip and they think it's working, but more and more people are slipping through their fingers and rebelling. And it's just going to take time. It'll take time.
It'll take time, and also a mechanism to rebel without being arrested for a Facebook post or whatever, because this is
people will have to be arrested. People will have to sacrifice themselves. I've been saying the last couple of weeks now online, we need some police officers to ruin their careers and stand up in front of the press in uniform and saying, I'm not obeying these orders because I think they're illegal and I think they're anti-English, anti-British, against the law, and I'm not obeying these. And if I'm fired now for that, then I'm fired for that.
Do you think that will happen?
It may do, depending on how bad things get. But I keep saying to people, if you're waiting for an opportunity to fight for your country that's risk-free, it just means you're never going to fight for your country. So people, you're going to have to accept some consequences. Some of us are going to have to be arrested. Some of us will go to jail. Some of us will ruin our careers. I've already ruined my career through speaking out.
Yeah.
So, but this is what's going to have to happen. We can't be an evil empire, but with nice words and no consequences. Freedom, we only have freedom isn't free. Freedom is paid for by the blood of patriots.
I'll read the last bit of this kind of synopsis of 1984. Winston and Julia read parts of Goldstein, but he's the architect of the party, which explains how the party maintains power, the true meanings of its slogans, and the concept of perpetual war. The perpetual war being the perpetual war that's been waged against us,
Yep.
the citizens at the moment. It argues that the party can be overthrown if proles rise up against it. And that's what you believe, isn't it?
Yeah. And I've said many times on this podcast, not only overthrown, but easily overthrown. Eastern Europe fell overnight.
Yeah.
Lots of regimes fall overnight. And a month before, the CIA would say to themselves, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And the CIA don't even see it happening.
Yeah.
Because all it takes is the public to realise we have the power and we have the numbers and we have the strength.
Yeah.
Once they're convinced of that, every regime falls overnight because you cannot control so many million people. You just can't.
I mean, my belief is now that, and you might laugh at this, Nick, but my belief, and I've been thinking about this a lot, I think we're basically living in a communist society now.
We have done for decades. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you do accept it. I think we're living in a communist society where it's a totalitarian state where we are being controlled very, very, and that control, that screw has tightened dramatically since Labour took power. But I think you're right, it's been there all the time. It's just we haven't maybe seen it as visible. And we have to. We now have a situation. We've discussed about this before. We vote in elections for things to happen, and our wishes are ignored. The voters are ignored. So the voters now know their votes are worthless, basically. And the only thing to do, we have to overthrow the government to overthrow this ruling class. Basically, we have to if we're going to get away from this society, this communist society.
Yeah, it's not just overthrowing the government, because you can replace the government tomorrow. We're just going to replace them with the same idiots now because they're all the same.
Yeah.
It's about overthrowing the political elite, which is a big part of the civil service. It's a big part of these huge organisations that are not elected but have so much power, like the BBC, like the Arts Council. All these NGOs all have power, soft power, but no one voted them in. They need overthrowing, and we need a government on our side to do that. I think since the Second World War, we've become a more and more socialist country. We had a hiccup with Thatcher, but then since Thatcher, everyone else has been a socialist after that. We have bigger states, we have more taxes, the government does more and more for us, they do it really poorly. Everyone looks to the state now for handouts, for support, for advice. This is a socialist country. We live in a socialist country in the UK, and it's plain to see. Starmer wants the next step, which is communism.
Yeah, I think we're partly down that road.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. I think Lenin said communism is the first step to communism. Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers, I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.